If you've already died trying to cross that damn border zone without really knowing what you were doing, welcome to the club. Road to Vostok doesn't hold your hand. There's no pretty tutorial, and the game literally throws you into a hostile region between Finland and post-collapse Russia, expecting you to figure it all out on your own. The problem is that the game simply doesn't explain several crucial mechanics. You're going to die, you're going to lose gear, and you're going to think the game is unfair when, in reality, you just didn't know a few things. So today, I've gathered the 10 tips that actually make a difference. The ones that separate players who progress from those who stay stuck repeating the same mistakes. I'm Matthew, and the video is about to start.
Finland begins massive evacuations in Area 05.
If you've ever crossed into Vostok during the day with clear skies and survived, it was luck. Pure luck. The military in this zone has absurd detection capabilities compared to anything you faced before. And in ideal visibility conditions, for them, you become a target with practically nowhere to hide. Entering the permadeath zone without considering weather and time isn't bravery, it's carelessness. And in this game, carelessness costs you your entire save. The window you need to wait for is rain or fog, combined with the period between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. This is the scenario where military detection drops to a minimum, and their vision range is reduced enough to give you real room to maneuver. Entering during this window doesn't eliminate the risk, Vostok will never be safe, but it drastically reduces the chance of being detected before you even have time to react. The contrast is brutal when compared to a clear daylight entry. The risk doesn't double, it triples. During the day, you are visible from a distance, the military locates you before you locate them, and the margin of error you have to reposition or retreat is minimal. It's the kind of disadvantage that no equipment can compensate for. No matter how well armed you are, the environment will work against you in a way that is hard to overcome. Therefore, before crossing the border zone, the first thing you do is check the conditions. Is it daytime? Wait. Is it too clear? Wait. The game gives you this window frequently enough that you don't need to force an entry in bad conditions. Plan the crossing with the same attention you give your loadout and medical kit. Vostok will still be there when the weather turns, and arriving prepared with the right conditions is half the battle before the first shot is fired. If you're still trying to save up money in this game, I need to tell you something important. Forget currency. It simply doesn't exist in Road to Vostok. Here, everything works on a pure barter system. Direct item for item exchange. Understanding this sooner rather than later is the difference between being stuck with mediocre gear forever or getting the best weapons in the game without relying on luck. The secret lies in knowing exactly what to stockpile. Not just any item will open up the best deals with traders. What you really want to accumulate are ACOG sites, suppressors, electronics, elite medical supplies, and military gear in general. These items have high internal value within the game's economy and are exactly what traders want most. Remember this: any ACOG or suppressor you find in the field, don't treat it as disposable, treat it like gold. Now comes the part I ignored at first. Traders charge double what they offer. This means you need to show up with a single item will rarely be enough to close a good trade. The goal is to reach the trader with an inventory loaded with high-value items and leave with weapons like the MK18, SVD, or KAR. 2-1. These pieces completely change your character's power level and put you in a much more comfortable position in the map's most dangerous zones. And the final point that makes all the difference. Trader inventories reset frequently. It's not instant, but it happens regularly enough that it's worth farming consistently and revisiting them. So the ideal routine is simple. Go out into the field, prioritize military gear and electronics loot spots, return to base, store what's valuable, and wait for the trader to update their stock. It sounds simple, but most players don't have the patience for this loop, and that's exactly why they never get the best weapons. Road to Vostok gives you good weapons, gives you space to build heavy loadouts, and then brutally punishes any player who thinks they can solve everything with brute force. The military in this game are not common enemies that you clear and move on from. They have communication, they have reinforcements, and a single shot fired in the wrong place can turn an encounter with 2 soldiers into 5 in less than 60 seconds. When you truly understand this, the way you move through the map changes completely. The golden rule here is simple and must be taken seriously. Do not shoot unless you have no alternative. Total stealth isn't a secondary option in Vostok, it's the primary strategy. Every shot is a reinforcement radio activated, and the time you have to handle the situation before more soldiers arrive is incredibly short. The VSS Ventores is the only suppressed weapon that works minimally in this context, but even it should be reserved for real emergencies, not for eliminating everything that appears in front of you. Mobility is your greatest ally when you decide not to shoot. Moving from building to building, using narrow corridors and tight passages, is exactly what puts you at a structural advantage. Armored vehicles can't enter these spaces, and this creates natural safety zones where you can reposition, wait for patrols to pass, and keep moving without firing a single shot. The map gives you these paths, but you need to be looking for them. The player who survives in Vostok isn't the one who kills the most, it's the one who is seen the least. This mindset is hard to adopt if you come from shooters where engaging in combat is always the answer. But here the game teaches you through the harshest method possible that uncontrolled aggression comes at a very high cost. Plan your route before crossing each area, identify cover, respect patrols, and only pull the trigger when there is absolutely no other way out. When you cross the Vostok border, the rules change completely. Death here isn't just a temporary punishment, it is permanent. We're talking about a total save wipe. Everything you were carrying, your progress, your equipment, it's all gone. So before anything else, you need to understand that Vostok isn't an area like the others. It's another game within the game. This is exactly why the shelter exists. It is your vault, the only truly safe place in the entire experience. Before you even think about crossing into any high-risk area, you go there and store everything that hurts to lose. Night vision, heavy armor, high-quality medkits, and any valuable loot you've accumulated. It's not optional, it's protocol. If you die with all that in your pocket on the wrong side of the border, there is no second chance. The mistake I see most players making is underestimating the shelter as a simple rest point. It's much more than that. Think of it as your character's actual base of operations. Every field excursion should end with a ritual. Return to the shelter, organize what's valuable, store the essentials, and only then decide if you are prepared to risk going deeper. Running off to Vostok without stopping by the shelter first is basically throwing your run in the trash voluntarily. The mindset that works here is simple, but requires discipline. No matter how excited you are to move forward, if your NVG or heavy armor isn't safely stored in the shelter, you aren't ready. Vostok will be there tomorrow. Your save might not be. Take the time to prepare everything in the shelter before crossing, because the players who get far in this game aren't the bravest. They are the most organized. I know the urge when you start a session is to head out with your best gear equipped ready for anything. But in the starting village of Road to Vostok, doing this is one of the biggest mistakes you can make. The village is a farming area, not an elite combat zone. Taking your best armor and your most valuable weapons, there is exposing everything you've built to unnecessary risk for a return that doesn't justify it. The right approach is simple and works very well. Grab a basic AKM or a shotgun, equipment you won't cry over if you lose, and use these loadouts to run the village and accumulate what actually matters at this stage of the game. Medkits, food, bags, and survival items in general are the focus here. These resources are the fuel for your progression, and the village offers a good amount of them without requiring you to put your heaviest gear at risk. What do you do with the valuable items in the meantime? Store them in the shelter chest at HQ. This is the point that connects this tip with everything we've said about the shelter. It exists to protect what you've built. Heavy armor, NVGs, high-value loot, all of it stays stored while you do the dirty work in the village with disposable gear. That way, even if something goes wrong, the loss is controlled. Think of this routine as a long-term investment. Every med kit and bag you accumulate in the village will give you the sustenance for the more dangerous zones later. And since you aren't risking your main gear in the process, you reach high-risk areas with everything intact and well supplied. It's exactly this cycle of smart farming that separates those who truly progress from those who stay stuck restarting from zero all the time. One of the things Road to Vostok does very well is forcing you to think about your loadout before leaving the shelter. And when it comes to combat, the game doesn't let you get away with a one-size-fits-all solution. Open areas and enclosed buildings require completely different tools, and entering either without the right weapon in hand is a huge disadvantage you're creating for yourself before the first shot. For open areas, any zoomed optic completely changes the game. An ACOG on your rifle allows you to identify and engage targets at distances where without it you simply couldn't respond effectively. And it's not just in the open field where this applies. The apartments surprise a lot of people because they seem like an enclosed environment, but the corridors and angles there frequently generate mid to long range combat. Reaching that area without magnification is a death sentence, as you'll take damage without being able to respond properly. Now, on the other side of the coin, the shotgun is king in CQB. Inside buildings where angles are tight and entry points are narrow, it ends fights in a way no rifle can match. Trying to clear a building with a long weapon while enemies appear 2 meters away is a recipe for a frustrated death. The shotgun turns these moments of danger into something much more controlled, provided you know when to pull it out. That's why the rule I follow and recommend is to always carry both. It's not about inventory weight. It's about never being in a situation without an answer. The scoped rifle handles the distances, the shotgun handles the close quarters, and the player who knows how to make that transition at the right moment is the one who comes out alive from most encounters. Planning your loadout with this duality in mind before leaving the shelter is one of the most important habits you can develop in this game. The shelter is your only fixed point in a world that tries to destroy you all the time. And it fulfills this role perfectly. Inside, you are completely safe, no enemies, no risk, no surprises. But there is a detail about how the game works around the shelter that, when understood correctly, completely transforms how you plan each game session. Every time you leave the shelter and return or switch zones, the world resets. Enemies respawn, loot respawns, everything goes back to square one. When you first discover this, it might seem frustrating, but in reality, it's the greatest gift the game gives you. This means that farming here is theoretically infinite. The same area you just cleared can be cleared again and again as many times as you need. The world doesn't run dry. The key to making the most of this is not to be greedy on your runs. Short, focused runs work much better than trying to carry everything at once. You go out, clear a specific area, grab what's valuable, and return to unload in the chest before your inventory becomes too heavy to continue efficiently. This cycle of heading out, farming, and coming back is the foundation of any solid progression in the game. The classic mistake is wanting to do everything in one run, staying in an area for too long, trying to carry more than you can handle, and ending up making a bad decision because you're overloaded. Planning smaller, more controlled excursions might seem less efficient in theory, but in practice, you accumulate much more with consistency. The shelter resets the world for you. Use that to your advantage and treat every outing as a mission with a clear beginning, middle, and end. Road to Vostok doesn't kindly warn you when you're about to die. An arterial bleed or a fracture at a bad moment can kill you in less than a minute. And if you don't have the right item in hand at that specific second, you don't have time to calmly search through your inventory. This game punishes medical lack of preparation implacably, and that's why the kit you take before leaving the shelter is just as important as the weapon you choose. The bare minimum you should always carry is 3 tourniquets and at least 2 splints. Tourniquets for critical bleeding and splints for broken bones. No exceptions. Fractures and arterial bleeds are exactly the kind of situations that appear at the worst possible time, in the middle of a fight, after a fall, or when you're already low on health. Having these items accessible and in sufficient quantity is the difference between surviving the encounter or seeing the game over screen for something that was completely avoidable. Additionally, carry at least 2 full med kits or AFACs on every run. One for use during the run and another kept as a real emergency backup. It sounds like a lot, but when you start facing heavy military units, you quickly understand that bandages alone won't cut it. These enemies deal enough damage to require serious recovery, and showing up in the middle of an intense combat with only bandages in your pocket is basically like having no medical kit at all. The mindset that works here is to treat the medical inventory as a priority, not a supplement. Before checking your ammo, check your kit. Before leaving the shelter, confirm the tourniquets are there, the splints are there, and the 2 medkits are accessible. It's a small habit that seems exaggerated until the day an arterial bleed shows up and you resolve the situation in 3 seconds because you were prepared. In this game, survival isn't luck, it's planning. There is something Road to Vostok does that few survival games truly get right. Sound here isn't just atmosphere. it is combat information. The audio design of this game was built to be brutal and precise, and players who treat sound as background noise are ignoring one of the most powerful tools the game puts in your hands, or rather, your ears. The practice that separates surviving players from those who die without understanding why is simple. Stop, crouch, and listen. Before entering any enclosed area, before turning any corner you don't know, take a second to stand completely still and let the audio tell you what's in front of you. Footsteps in Road to Vostok have clear direction, distance, and surface type. You can distinguish if the enemy is upstairs, in the next hallway, or standing still waiting. This level of detail is rare, and ignoring it is wasting a huge advantage. In enclosed areas, directional sound literally decides who dies first. It's no exaggeration. Between two players with equivalent gear, if one stopped to listen and the other ran in, they will end up with completely different results. The one who acted based on audio already knows where the shot will come from before even seeing the enemy. The one who ignored the sound will react too late. It's this difference of fractions of a second, built before the combat begins, that defines the outcome. Always use a good pair of headphones when playing Road to Vostok. This isn't a comfort tip, it's a survival tip. Quality stereo sound will give you a much more precise reading of footstep direction than any speakers can offer. The game was made to be listened to carefully, and the more you develop the habit of stopping and listening before acting, the more you realize the audio is always telling you what your eyes haven't seen yet. The minefield is one of the first major walls the game throws at you, and how you learn to cross it says a lot about the type of player you'll be in the deeper zones. Proximity mines are practically invisible until you're too close to do anything, and trying to cross this field through brute force or luck is one of the most frustrating ways to lose progress the game offers. Here, tactics are not optional. They are the only way. The first habit you need to develop is learning the visual patterns of the mines. They are subtle, but they are there, and the game leaves visual clues for those who are paying attention. When you identify one from a distance, don't try to go around it in the dark. Detonate it from a distance with a precise shot. Ballistic detonation works and eliminates the risk before you even need to pass that point. It's an approach that requires patience and ammo, but it's infinitely better than discovering where the mine is with your own feet. Besides long-distance detonation, use the terrain geometry to your advantage. High routes and narrow gaps exist in the minefield specifically for those who know how to look for them. These alternative paths aren't always obvious, but they are safe once you find them, and memorizing these passages after a few runs transforms the minefield from a terrifying obstacle into an area you cross with confidence and efficiency. Think of the minefield as an advanced tactics training zone before Vostok. The game is teaching you here in a very direct way that visual attention, patience, and route planning are the skills that will decide your survival further ahead. Every player who masters this area arrives in Vostok with a different mindset, calmer, more methodical, and much better prepared for what lies ahead.